Nevis, Team Penske, because of how hard it is to fall way behind with yellows and so forth, you just need to stay in contention, don't overextend yourself or your car, and work for it to try to line it up for that final slingshot.
We're seeing Chip Ganassi Racing have had so much success. They do gear changes, gear cluster changes in the middle of the race, knowing they didn't have the top speed, but they just had to, make that compromise, lose some laps, but then come back and be strong at the end of the race. That's what you have to do. If you realize you're not got a fast enough car, you got to make those changes early.
The interesting thing for me, though, is we're going to take a look at it here. Whoa, and a big overrun in the corner there by the 31 of Nasser. But he in the number 7, watch what happens here to Helio. Big loose moment. This was a few laps back, and Nasser got through Cal. But by the time they got to the bus stop, I tell you, that Acura's got speed in a straight line.
Yeah, they've really been trying to work with what we call the balance of performance and trying to get all of these different platforms on a very similar performance curve, and they've done a great job. When you look at the grid, it is very tight in all 3 classes.
We're looking at the 7 car, and we've seen Castro Neves struggle just a little bit. Matt Yoakum, what's the word from the Penske camp?
And Castro Neves told me going into this weekend, each stint, each race this season will be a learning experience, making that transition from Indy cars to the little bit heavier sports cars, but he's extremely excited about it. But he told me at the beginning he was just going to settle in, find a good pace. Going back to what you mentioned, he specifically said, I live by Rick Mears' words, you're never going to win the race on the first lap or first stint. Jamie Little?
And Matt, the first incident of the day involved the 58 Wright Motorsports Porsche 911 in the GTD class. I just checked with them. They're not exactly sure the extent of the damage, but there's quite a bit on the driver's side, the under tray, and the rear wing. They're working on it now. About 20 different team members trying to get back out there, because remember, Christina Nielsen, she's the defending GTG champion. They want to earn some points, and they want to get in this race.
So interesting to watch Tristan Vautier in the Spirit of Daytona number 90 Cadillac. A little bit of lockup there. You can see the top speed comes, or the power comes in different places. It looks like the Cadillac a little faster through the midsection, but right there at the end, that Acura seems to have the ultimate top speed.
Well, IMSA, the sanctioning body, kind of dictated to Cadillac. You had a motor that had extreme torque last year. They struggled to balance it with the other cars, so they made their move. They didn't make the move. They suggested, what can you do? They went to the drawing board, came back with a smaller displacement motor this year. Went from a 6.2 litre down to a 5.5 to try and match the torque factor, but you're still seeing that Cadillac still has really strength down low.
Looking back in GT Le Mans, Corvette teammates, the 4, Ollie Gavin, easily by Jan Magnussen, and that's okay. Their teammates, Magnussen knows exactly what's going to go on. Gavin may have been saying on the radio, hey, I think I'm a little bit quicker. Jan saying, go right ahead right now. Let's see if we can't chase down the 2 Fords that are running 1-2.
14 manufacturers in this field of cars. We're seeing a couple of Audis fighting out right there in GTD. Right behind them, that's the Manthey Porsche. Stellar team from Europe. So much success with Porsche over the years. Led by Olaf Manthey, and it's a Ferrari chasing that Porsche down.
Manthey's the team that fields the factory cars at the VLN race on the Nordschleife, at that famed 12 to 14 mile road course around the Nürburgring Castle, that they have a race once a month, and the VLN has been won a bunch of times by the Manthey Porsches.
That number 29 car, keep in mind, that's the car that finished second last year here by about 0.2 of a second and won at Petit Le Mans. With Sheldon Vanderlinde behind the wheel, who was in the car this year, teamed with his brother Kelvin, who won at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca in the season finale of the 8-hour race for the International GT Cup. This is a strong package, and they're really serious about potentially a season-long program,
which would be spectacular. That's another stellar team in the GT Daytona category right now, all over the back of Andy Lally in the number 44. And it's good to see Andy back with Magnus Racing. It just seems to be his home. And I think John Potter really thrives when Andy's around. He's not only a very good race car driver, he's a good coach, and he pulls John along with him.
Yeah, they're going to be a threat for the championship. They're so strong. Andy did the year with Mike Shank Racing and the Acura program. Had a couple of wins. He and Catherine Lake teamed together for the championship. Came up a little bit shy in the points, but it was a stellar year. But long-term, Andy just feels his future is with that Magnus group, and they've got big plans ahead of them.
And that's Sam Bird in the number 64 Ferrari moving to the inside of the Porsche. And this is a man that is came on the scene a few years ago. I think Peter Barron gave him his first ride stateside, and he is an absolute rocket ship. Strong driver lineup in that 64.
Already prototypes working through the GT Daytona class, and now is when that experience with traffic comes into play. This is where drivers like Fernando Alonso, even as good as they are, this is different for them because they've got multiple classes that they're going to have to deal with. Not necessarily different from him passing people, but 3 different classes, and nighttime is especially going to be interesting.
That gave you your best look so far at what the difference in speed is between these multi-classes. And now every driver driving by himself, it's hard enough to hit your mark because your braking point is literally a matter of a few feet at 190 miles an hour. So if all of a sudden you're closing on a slower car, do you brake in the same point? Are you going to have enough time? You don't want to give up too much time. These are the things that are making just all these split-second calculations and why it sometimes goes wrong.
I remember at Le Mans a few years ago, I talked to Karen Shandok, the Formula One driver who made the transition to multi-class racing. Ooh, very, very close there. And I asked about it. I said, what was it like with traffic the first time you got out there? And he said, oh, I was useless. He said that is the level of intensity that these guys have to deal with now when they make that switch. And the point is, these other classes aren't just driving around, they're battling for their own. And we just saw that as the prototypes work past Van der Linde and Andy Lally as well. Right now, Ringer Van de Zande out in front. Cadillac, this is where the 10 car finished last year, but we still have a very long way to go from Daytona.
Success is no accident. It takes hard work and perseverance. Working together, everyone achieves more. And just like our best days on the track, nothing beats WeatherTech.
On the track or on the street, Michelin Pilot tires are chosen by the best for their best. Genuine passion, exceptional drives.
The same sport hybrid technology that drives the Acura NSX. Now available in the 5-passenger RLX. And the 7-passenger MDX. Sport hybrid, super handling, all-wheel drive. Super runs in the family.
This is modern-day endurance racing, a set of sprint races between tyre changes and fuel stops.
It has definitely heated up inside the cockpits.
If at this moment you don't feel a twinge of excitement, if your heart is not beating a little bit faster, then you have no place calling yourself a motorsport fan.
It's time! Let's go sports car racing!
Growing up, watching the Daytona 500 was always an event.
There's a slogan that they had last year, Daytona Day. It was Daytona Day for my family on the Daytona 500.
I watched the Daytona 500 with family.
It's just such an awesome way to start our NASCAR season.
The Rolex 24 at Daytona on Fox is sponsored by WeatherTech, the ultimate American-made vehicle protection. Looking down at Daytona International Speedway, the 56th running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Brian Till, Calvin Fish, Tommy Kendall, and Greg Creamer with you in the booth. Jamie Little, Jamie Howe, Matt Yoakum, and Justin Bell in pit lane. Good weather right now and good racing. We saw Ringer Van de Zande qualify his Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillac prototype on the pole. He is out in front, but the battles have been absolutely intense. I'm a little bit surprised how intense they've been as you ride on board with two-time Formula One world champion Fernando Alonso.
Watch his helmet moving around there, looking in the side view mirrors, trying to observe, are there any moves being made on me, as he still negotiates and looks ahead at that GTD traffic he's in right now.
This is what he's not used to. That enclosed car kind of takes your vision away a little bit, and that's pretty tight racing.
He's also going to have about 1,000 moments like that during the course of this race.
He's not also used to being able to have a slow car to use as a pick right afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Steven Simpson in the 99. Great to see the red Dragon back. Gainsco on the side of that, now being run by JDC Miller Motorsports. Steven Simpson, Misha Goikhberg in that car for the full season.
Double champions, of course, with Bob Stallings. Stellar run they have with John Fogarty and Alex Gurney, of course. They made history a few years ago, but now great to see that brand at least back in our prototype category.
Well, that little bit of bobble and that momentum loss has allowed not only Simpson to get by, but Ryan Dial now in the Nissan DPI got a great run and makes the pass. You see him slide through on the left.
Well, Fernando said even back at the Roar in one of the press conferences, I have a lot to learn, and I want to learn throughout the event here. By the time I get to the end of the race, I want to be a better endurance driver. I was surprised to hear him talk about the nighttime as well, because Formula One does run a couple of night races, and I thought, well, that counts as a night race, but he seems to not take that into consideration.
Well, there's no lights on the car in Formula One. The whole track is lit. So the lighting's gotten better here, but the amount of lights on the front of one of these prototypes, and if they're not pointed exactly correctly, it's invisible. So he's going to have to deal with that. When I spoke to him the other night, he said his eyesight's still good, and so I said, well, you know, probably no big deal once you get used to it.
The other thing he had to deal with was sharing the car. At the Raw, they call the test in the early January here at Daytona. It's 3 days. I'm sure he felt he's going to get a ton of track time. He finished that 3-day test. He said, I'm amazed how little track time I got. All of the changes to the cars, the United team were trying to dial that Ligier in, also sharing it with his two young teammates. He suddenly realized, I'm not quite as prepared as I thought I would be. Like at Indianapolis, he had a lot more seat time to really get dialed in by the time the race started. But as you know, Tommy, when you start one of these 24-hour races, seat time is not a problem. He's going to get several hours behind the wheel. He'll figure it out.
You know, and the other issue with the night racing, you know, Formula One, there aren't headlights dancing in your mirrors, bouncing around behind you and the like. There are things that are different. He certainly is more than capable of dealing with it. And you look at what he did at Indy last year and how quick he learned during that race. Imagine what he's going to do by the end of 24 hours.
Talk about the talent level in this field and the names you recognize. Bruno Senna in the team car to Fernando Alonso, the 32 from United Autosports, and right behind him, Oliver Jarvis, a well-known Audi factory driver, now driving there with Mazda. And it just shows you the depth of talent in this field.
Bruno Senna, the nephew of the late great Ayrton Senna. And he won a world championship himself last year in one of these type of cars. Different brand. He ran with the Oracle with the Rebellion team, but he knows these cars extremely well. And you see these guys battling further down. Right now, that's a battle for 15th position. And that's the talent level, the depth in this category this year.
Remember, the Mazda started back a little bit. Jarvis with a good run forward right now. Take a look. He's won this race before in class and certainly knows how to run endurance races. We talked about it, a victory at Sebring, a victory at Le Mans. So they couldn't have picked a better driver to drop into that team. It'll be fun. He says, I'm so excited about running here all year long. Ford's out in front in GTLM. Let's check in the Ford camp with Matt.
And they are certainly looking pretty stout. And Ryan Briscoe waiting to go in that 67. So when will we see you get behind the wheel?
In a couple of hours. Rick will do a double stint here. I'll get into a double stint, then Dixon will follow after that.
When you look back to the car and how it reacted in practice, what stood out to you?
You know, practice was pretty tricky for us. We had very strong winds all week. Started out the week really loose and struggled a lot in qualifying. We made changes for the night practice to the setup, and the car really came to life. So looks like, you know, Richard's pretty happy out there at the moment. So is Joey. So we're just trying to settle in here. The pace looks good, but too soon to count chickens or rule anyone out. So we're just trying to get into rhythm, and we'll see how it goes.
Richard will pull a double stint, and then Ryan will get back behind the wheel and do a double stint as well.
You look at the overall lead, the black prototype screen left. Ringer van de Zande, that's Felipe Nasser in the red and white 31 trying to hunt him down. Tommy, you and Calvin both have wins in class here, and one of the things that I think is so interesting, it's one thing to set your car up to run online in practice and qualifying. but you rarely get to run on line during the race. You're always either dodging traffic or trying to go around it. How do you come up with a compromise that works kind of everywhere?
Well, and one that all the teammates are happy with. I mean, this is one of the few places that I'm not always shooting for the fastest car. It's like if you can get a couple extra tenths that it's harder to drive, you almost always choose the what can I do that's livable, that's predictable in different situations.
Felipe Albuquerque in the black, number 5, says, hey, I think I'll take that position over from my teammate. Both Action Express entries here, the Whelan, the 31 with Nasser in it. Albuquerque just got a great run off the bus stop.
He really did. He got the power down, he got the draft, so there is some effect there with these identical prototype machines. He just slip shot there down into the brake zone. But Albuquerque came so close to the victory last year. It was kind of a bump and run by Ricky Taylor with Wayne Taylor Racing to get that lead late in the race, and it left a very disgruntled team, and particularly Felipe Albuquerque, about how that win got away from them. But this is just good, hard racing, and everyone now, Tommy, is starting to find that rhythm. And you talk about running off line, Brian, one of the things you're going to have to do, you will have to make those moves, but just be, as this race wears on, you're going to get a lot more marbles, a lot more rubber offline that you'll pick up, and just be careful in the next corner.
Great aerial footage from our WeatherTech cam looking down on the racetrack.
As we see, this is not a scheduled pit stop. This is too early. Yeah. Nose change. You watch how quickly they're able to pull the full nose off with headlights. New one goes on, already preset. See the T-handles there, they'll twist those.
Wonder if the 78 had a problem somewhere on the racetrack and damaged that nose. I can't believe that the balance would be so far off right now. They need to make an aero change. You see the curbing that they're running over in the bus stop, and a lot of times that can certainly create damage.
And there had to be something major, because they could have gone about another 10 minutes and basically been in their fuel window. So they're making that change. There's something pretty severe to make that unscheduled stop.
Right on board right now with Jan Magnussen in the number 3 Corvette. 20th anniversary for that program this year here at Daytona. Matt?
And Brian, such a tradition. Their DNA is racing. The Corvette, 6.5 decades that car enthusiasts have certainly loved. And what a way to kick off the 20th season for this Corvette racing program. On the pole, and on top of that, the Cadillac was on the overall pole.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. There's tough competition, and I think IMSA's done a good job of really making things very even as we start here today. So, this is the kind of racing series that's really growing. We have a lot of tech transfer between this car right here and the track and our Cadillac in the track. So, we have a new ZR1 out here in the Chevrolet today, 755 horsepower. We've done a lot of work on these engines. These engines are built right by us in Chevrolet at our Global Powertrain Center. So, a lot of tech transfer, a lot of suspension transfer, a lot of data transfer. So it's a great deal, and we love it. Cadillacs are so strong, and if you go into the display out here, everybody can see the new V-Series cars that are, they're very, very track capable. So we've got a lot of tech transfer going back between that, but this is what it's all about. 5 years ago, Jim France and IMSA and Scott and Ed and the whole team have really done a great job as we combine these series, and you can see it in the stands, and you can see all the excitement and all the drivers and all the teams coming racing this series, and they want to do it at Daytona, so it's a great day.
Mark Royce, Executive Vice President, General Motors. It's kind of a combo platter. You're a racing enthusiast, but such a car guy, so it's such a win-win. But when you walk through the infield and you see your display and how the fans have just congregated to it, it's pretty amazing.
It is. There's still no other sport like it, and I think the fans and I think our customers, we got a lot of Corvette customers here today, and they are so passionate. So it's fun to see that. It's fun to see them driving the cars that are a result of this program. So that's what it's all about.
The Corvette corral was overflowing, and it's great to see the top executives from all the different manufacturers so gung-ho and jacked up about their racing programs, guys.
Yeah, it's so impressive, especially in this sport, as fickle as it can be. You see teams that have been around for 20 years, but 20 years with the same manufacturer and with the same mark. Very impressive indeed, some spectacular numbers.
First ever official Chevy Corvette racing team who had the courage to bring this car out and debut it in a 24-hour race, recognized as perhaps the toughest race in the world.
The Rolex 24 at Daytona.
Here we go.
Is
This
all
is GT
Corvette.
Lamar at its finest. These two Corvettes side by side at the line. 1-2 here at Daytona.
Every truck guy has their own way of conveying powerful.
Yeah, boy. Kind of looks like a monster coming to eat you. Holy smokes. That is awesome. Strong.
You got the basic and you got the beefy.
I just think it looks mean. Incredible.
No way.
Start your year off strong in a new Chevy truck. Get a total value of over $9,600 on this Silverado All-Star when you finance with GM Financial. Find new roads at your local Chevy dealer.
Continental tires are built for the road that connects you to all of life's journeys. And for nearly 150 years, we've been developing tires to fit your needs. Each Continental tire is designed to give you precise handling and traction in all seasons, and a quiet, comfortable ride wherever the road takes you. You're at your best when you're doing what you really love. We're at ours when we're helping you get there. Continental Tire, for what you do.
I am going to tell you about the most incredible place. And you know what? You're walking on it.
One Strange Rock, March 26th on National Geographic.
This is the fastest thing fast.
Green flag all rolling.
The clash is underway. It's the Can-Am Duel at Daytona. Wow. I'll take your breath.
Speed Weeks begins February 11th with Daytona 500 qualifying. And don't miss the Daytona 500, February 18th on Fox.
It's a frozen world, but right now it's thawing out.
Every day counts out here in the summer.
You work till the sun goes down.
Summer is a season of opportunity, and I've got to grab it.
This is life without a clock.
You always got to thank the head.
If you don't produce, you die.
Life Below Zero: The Thaw. New episodes Thursdays at 9 on National Geographic.
Simp scientists agree. Simpsanity is caused by every Simpsons ever on FXX.
We knew perfectly well it was addictive. We thought we were God.
Every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday.
I would pay to see it again and again and again and again, but not 6 times.
5 days a week, not Wednesday, not Saturday.
Weak, and lame.
Every Simpsons ever on FXX and always on FX Now.
Frank out.
When you come to the Rolex 24 at Daytona, it's not just about what's on track. The manufacturer's midway is phenomenal. If it is automotive, it is here. And that's why you see all those motorhomes. The crowd here is huge. You don't see them in the grandstand, though. They are in the infield, standing in the turns, watching, camping. It's always such a pleasure to be at the Rolex 24, your overall leader in the pits.
Seems like all the Cadillacs are staggering their stops here. So we saw the 10-car blink first, then the 31, the sister Action Express car. Now it's the leader, Felipe Albuquerque. See them double stinting these Continental tires. And these are very short fuel runs right now. We anticipated 38 to 40 minutes, but obviously with the pace laps, this first one's a little bit shy of that, but remarkable, the 10-car only went 32 minutes before they brought him in, Renger van der Zande, our pole sitter.
And being able to go 1 or even 2 laps longer is incredibly significant when you extrapolate it out over the entire race. You can save stops and so forth. It opens up strategy on how soon you can stop towards the end, all kinds of things, and they're going to play it safe here at first, but we'll see how that plays out between different manufacturers and amongst teams.
Are those first stops, though, they're generally fairly conservative, aren't they, so they can really get a lock on their fuel numbers?
Absolutely. You don't want to, roll the dice too much on that first one. Just get a read on it, see how much fuel goes in the car, and make your calculations from there.
Well, a little argy-bargy, as you call it, Calvin, on pit lane. There's pit lane speed limiters must not be set the same. That's Jonathan Bomarito in the 55 Mazda. In the 54, Colin Brown right behind him. You can't really get any closer than that.
And we talk about the big names in the sport this year, the fact that Team Penske is here. Well, one of the biggest names in sports car racing in history is Team Yost. They are now running those Mazda DPIs. They've had 13 victories at Le Mans. They are a stellar group led by the German Ralf Juttner right now. He's got his whole team over from Germany running these two Mazda DPIs. They will be a factor this year, Tommy. They have really made considerable changes to the design of this race car. The cooling, the aerodynamics are way different from last year. They've shown a lot of pace this weekend.
Much of the innovations in terms of how people run 24-hour races were pioneered by the Yost team at Le Mans. They changed an entire back half of a car in like 4 minutes, they just changed the game. Now everyone is doing that stuff, but to have this group back, if you look at the two new teams, both Penske from his 16 Indy 500 winners, Yost with all those Le Mans wins, those are two of the 4 teams on the Team Mount Rushmore more in racing, really.
We saw the number 10 with the pole position lead for a while until Ringer Van de Zande dropped back to second place. They stopped just moments ago. Jamie, what's the word?
The team saying exactly what you guys have echoed, that at this point in the race, just be conservative. Stop when you can. As soon as that window opens, go ahead, top it off. Let everything just kind of fall into place. Let everyone get into a rhythm. You know, it's interesting, though, listening to Ringer on the radio. He wants a lot of information. That's something that this team has had to get used to over the last couple of days. They even put a new dash in the car for him that has a whole page of information they never thought a driver would want. He wants to know about the brake pressure. He wants to know the tire pressure. He wants to know all the temperatures, and he wants to know it when he wants it. So they put that in the car for him. It's information overload for a driver like his co-driver Jordan, but it's something that the team is working out. They have a very long race ahead of them, and they're all settling in, Matt.
First stop, Jamie, a great opportunity just to get the butterflies out. Yes, you can practice pit stops during the off-season. Remember, at Action Express, they've had some positional changes. Chad Gordon left for Team Penske's Acura program as a mechanic. He was a tire changer. Bill Coyler, he moved from the 5 to the 31, and they made some positional changes as well. Everyone just settling in. Everything looks good so far here in Action Express.
Quick funny story about Wayne Taylor Racing and the fact that they got that new driver, Ringer Van de Zande. I spoke to Wayne on the phone and said, how is he fitting in? He said he's great, really fun guy. He said, but he'll never answer his phone. He'll never leave a voicemail and he doesn't answer it. And Ringer said, well, I don't answer my phone, Wayne. Text me if you need to get me. And Wayne said, that's not going to work. So Ringer then changed his voicemail message to say, don't bother leaving a message unless it's Wayne Taylor or Toto Wolff, who runs the Mercedes Formula One team. So he's a character and he's fitting in well.
That's why he fits in so well. Look at this. It reminds me of the finish a couple of years ago, side by side. But once again, you look at the two most experienced guys in the Corvette camp, and they're willing to use that draft, help pull each other just a little bit down the straightaways here at Daytona, and just biding their time.
Well, you talked about the 20 years that this team has been running. You know who's been in the car for 17 of them? Ollie Gavin. I mean, I don't think there's a driver connected to a particular team that exceeds that in this sport. It's just remarkable.
I think he's had 49 wins with that brand, so he's gone for number 50 here this weekend, and he actually had foot surgery over the offseason. He said, I've really been struggling in recent years with my braking foot. It's really compromised my ability in the car, and the surgeon just said, you're going to have it done. He said, I feel much more confident when he's at the test.
Risi Competizione out in front, and that's not uncommon to hear, except this time it's in GT Daytona. Right now, Miguel Molina leading, Daniel Serra in second, and Dominic Baumann in the Lexus having a good run. We talked about the speed that Lexus seems to have found, but do they have the reliability this year to run the 24? That's what we'll have to see. New drivers in that program, and that may bring some new life to it. There's a look at the 51, Daniel Serra.
Yeah, one of the it's only at play in this GT Daytona class is the drivers all have ratings between silver to platinum, or bronze to platinum, based on experience and so forth. In this class, you can't have just all platinum and gold like all the factory cars have in the upper classes. And the idea is to make it so that the sportsman driver that fund a lot of these cars can still be competitive. So the secret in this class is trying to find the fastest silvers and the fastest bronze you can. And you'll see names you've never heard of, and they're running right up front, and you got to kind of go to the internet and say, who is this guy? And these teams pride themselves on finding what I call the sneaky silvers.
And there's Dominic Baumann in the 14. It's the only sport I know of where competitors are saying, no, I'm really not that good. you should lower my rating.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of experience in GT, and you think, oh, this is the first big race of the year. It certainly is on US soil, but there was a 24-hour race in Dubai. Right after the test in January, he went out and won it. So he's for his second 24-hour win of the year, and it's early.
And behind those two Ferraris and that Lexus, you're right on board now with Andy Lally in the Magnus Audi back in the championship. He's been one of the huge movers. They didn't qualify that well. He's up 6 spots. And when you get a little bit farther down the order, as you see the Montplace by Landau, you're right behind him. It's the number